It's almost Thanksgiving and the holiday is coming up. I'm not sure about you, but I'm excited. Anyways, in this video, we'll cover the entire research process of purchasing properties at tax sales. Everything you will need to know about research and due diligence. Stay tuned. Tax deed sales occur when a property owner fails to pay for property taxes and the government auctions off the property to recover unpaid taxes that the county needs to be able to pay for roads, schools, police, libraries, and etc. Tax deed sales offer tremendous opportunities for those who fully understand the process. Being able to identify those opportunities along with proper due diligence and research is the key to successful tax deed investing. I often see people missing critical steps during their research process before attending auctions, which is partially why they're often failing in this business and losing money. Smart investors know that there is no such a thing as an investment with no risk. They also understand that risk can be managed and minimized by proper due diligence and throughout the detailed research process. There are often little things that can be easily overlooked during your research process, things that make the difference between making or losing money. If I give a list of 10 properties to 5 different people, not every one of those 5 people will have the same results. The same applies if I give one property that I know has the potential to make $70,000, $80,000 to those 5 people, their results will not be the same. Everyone has a different way of doing things. Some people are more aggressive than others, some can be more motivated, and so everybody's situation and style will differ. But essentially what it comes down to is proper due diligence and research process. You can be looking at the best investment deal, but if your research is not done properly, or if you miss something out, you will most likely not fully capitalize on that opportunity. That deal will end up in hands of someone who did his research properly. I want to stress the importance of research process, which is one of the most critical aspects of being successful in this business. Without further ado, let's dive into a research process. Anytime a property goes to a tax deed sale, you want to know everything you can about the property, just like if you would be buying a property for you to live in. You want to learn about the neighborhood, the crime, the school system, job growth. Are more people moving in or out of that area? Is it growing? You should be asking yourself the same questions you would be asking someone else if you would want to move into the house with your family. Now remember, you will not be living in this house, and it is also important to remember that all other people have their pride and they need to live somewhere, meaning that what's not good for you may be good for somebody else, as long as the price is right and you can provide a nice living for a family. Let's review some of the steps you need to take during your research process. Let's say you identified the property you're interested in purchasing at the sale. The first step would be to determine whether or not the deal makes financial sense. So here's what I do. I need to determine the fair market value of the property by looking at 2 important numbers: comparables and the sale prices of homes that have sold recently in the area. So let's start with the first number, comps. Get a comps of the property from third-party websites such as Realtor, Zillow, Redfin, etc. And by looking at other similar homes with the same square footage within a reasonable distance. Once you get a fair market values from third-party websites on multiple properties, you can calculate the average from all of those numbers. Second number, I look at the properties that have recently sold in the area. Properties with the same square footage and preferably the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms. This number is a very accurate indicator of what the property of your interest may be worth today and how much you can expect to sell it for. You want to look at the date those properties were sold. You don't want to go back too far, maybe a quarter, 4 months, maybe up to 6 months. But you also want to look at how long it took for those properties to be sold in that neighborhood. And that will tell you how long it may take for properties to be sold today. For example, going back to 2021-22, the property sold in less than 30 days on average. In today's market, if the property is priced right, it will take between 60 to 90 days. It will take longer for the property to sell if the house is overpriced. So again, the location and the market condition will dictate the average of, and either your realtor can help you with that, or you can go to trulia.com or realtor.com, any of the sites, and you will be able to see how long those properties were on the market before they sold. So you have done your research, you looked at third-party websites to determine that fair market value based on the square footage, bathrooms and bedrooms, and the number is, let's say, $200,000. That is the fair market value of the property based on the third-party companies. And then you have also looked at the properties that sold, and you came up with the number $240,000. So we have two numbers. We have $200,000. These are the numbers from third-party companies, and we have $240,000, which is the price for the properties that have already sold in recent months. What you want to do at this point is to take an average of these two numbers, and if your calculation is correct, you should have come up with about $220,000, and that should be estimated fair market value of the property you're looking at to purchase at a tax deed sale. What you can also do to get a feel for the neighborhood is to get a feedback by talking to people living on the same street. Just tell them you're considering moving in with your family, and most people will be happy to talk to you. I remember we're interested in bidding on one particular property, and I spoke to quite a few neighbors who told me about that troubled house 2 streets out, and there were always problems. Young people coming in, sex, drugs, police were always coming in, so there was always something going on. But that was 2 streets out, and we ended up, it did not stop us from bidding on that property, and actually we ended up purchasing this property and renting it, and we never had any issues. So again, the more you are aware, the better off you will be. The next step is, once you determine the fair market value of the property, which we just covered, you will need to set your maximum bid. That is the amount of money you're willing to purchase the property for. And this is extremely important to stick to that number. It could be set to 60, 70, 80%, even 90%, whatever your criteria is, whatever you set your numbers to. Now, if you're looking at the property with a fair market value of $220,000 that you can purchase for, let's say, $110,000, 50 cents on the dollar, that may be a decent deal. Depending on the condition of the property, let's say you will need to do half rehab on the property, and the cost of the rehab will be, let's say $30,000 to $40,000. You can still potentially make $40,000 to $50,000 in 2 to 4 months if you sell the property 10% below the market price. And if the housing market is good, maybe you can even get a full price of $220,000, making you $60,000 in 4 months. It is just the game with the numbers at this point, knowing how much work you put into it and how much money you want to make on this particular property. The quicker you can get out of the deal, take the profits and move on to another deal, the better. Let's say you repeat the process 2 or 3 times and now you suddenly make 6 figures. It can happen, and it probably will if you are consistent. So you always have options. You also have an option not to do the rehab. So let's let someone else deal with that. You may be okay taking only $25,000 or $30,000 in a few weeks of work because you don't have to deal with the rehab. So it will not take you 4 months to close the deal. It may just take you 2 weeks. And if you do that, you may do 5 deals annually. So just remember, you do have options. Folks, I know the numbers looks good, and trust me, it is not as easy as it seems by looking at these decent hypothetical returns and scenarios. And I also want you to be realistic. You have to expect to hit the roadblocks and deal with challenges along the way. It may be frustrating sometimes. You may be stressed out when you go to an auction, and it is all part of the process. Nothing in life comes easy, but I also know it is very doable to achieve. I'm also very confident if your research is done properly and you are following all the steps, it is just a matter of time before you find yourself in a situation of making decent living, doing this while having fun with no stress, because it is not so difficult if you have process in place, and I am a living proof of that. Next step would be redemptions and liens. You want to wait, I would say, about 2 to 3 days before an auction. Check to make sure the property has not been redeemed. Assuming the property still goes on sale, you want to check any outstanding liens on the property that can significantly decrease your potential to make any money on that property. You go to the county's website and you will find a lien on the property. Let's say it's an IRS lien in the amount of $10,000. If you are the highest bidder, you will inherit this debt and you will be responsible for it when you become an owner of that property. You will need to contact the IRS and see if you can settle it. Otherwise, your profit will be $10,000 less because you will have to pay for it. Some liens are attached to the properties, not necessarily to the people. So whoever buys the property, that lien stays with the property. Always make sure you are aware of any liens on the property. Why check liens now and not during your research? Let me explain. Let's say you're looking at 40 properties that goes to sell. You have to do research on 40 properties. 90% of those properties will be redeemed. So you don't want to do lien search on properties that will be redeemed, because we know statistically 90% of them will redeem. So if you're looking at the 40 properties, I'm guessing maybe 4, 5, 6 properties will not redeem and will go to sell. You want to wait to get closer to the auction date and then do the search on the lien. You will save significant amount of time by doing it that way. Next step would be inspection on the property. I usually wait until 1 day before an auction, before inspecting properties. Sometimes even on the same day, early in the morning, depending on the location. You always need to physically inspect the property, and there is no exception to that. By seeing the property, you will get a sense of the type of the rehab that the property needs, and you will need to see the condition of the property. An exterior will always give you that feel. Make sure you modify your maximum bid if the rehab is more than initially estimated. The next step is to set your maximum bid. So your maximum bid has already been predetermined during your research. You can just adjust your maximum bid accordingly based on what you feel the rehab is going to cost. And this is the amount of money you're willing to purchase the property for. Never get emotional and start adjusting your maximum bid during an auction. You are going into an auction knowing exactly what your maximum bid is and how much money you're willing to pay for the property, which is $110,000 in our example. Be disciplined, otherwise it will be a certain guaranteed failure. At this point, you are fully prepared and ready to attend the auction. You know what the fair market value of the property is. You know what the property is worth, with or without a rehab. You now have an estimate about the rehab cost. You know realistically how much you can sell the property for. You are aware of any outstanding liens against the property, if any. You have a good understanding of the neighborhood, how long it will take to close this deal depending if you are doing a rehab or not, and what your expected returns will be. If you are the highest bidder, you run to the county immediately with cash or bank's cashier's check to pay for the property, because even though you are the highest bidder, if the previous property owner gets there before you to pay for the outstanding balance, you're out of luck. He or she can still pay for the property before you get there and pay for it. Once you pay the balance, you officially became a new owner of that property. Now, of course, there is more to it, but I didn't want to make this video too long. But if you wish to learn more about the research process in detail, feel free to check out my video called How to Make $50,000 Investing in Tax Deeds. You will find the link in the description below. I hope the information in this video was informative and helpful. I am very excited for all of you who want to get into this unique space, still unknown to too many people. Why? Because I know how much money can be made purchasing properties at those auctions. A few tips I can give you: don't miss any steps during your research process. Be consistent. And lastly, be patient. If you don't remember anything from this video, I want you to remember this: the only way to fail in this business is to give up and not to be consistent. If you continue going and be patient, things will start happening for you, I promise you that. I included a short video I have captured recently from my window. I hope you like it. Thank you all for watching. Until next time.